I figure that you guys are like me, that you're fairly busy in life, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Perhaps over the last few months that we've been talking, maybe God has spoken to you and you've thought through some things, but you just haven't got around to applying it. I won't say who, but someone came up to me just as I was about to come up inside and just said, man, I was supposed to do this thing. I'm not doing this thing. It's like, oh, I won't use an example. It was a perfect example, but I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy. So I wanted to do something to try and give you some space, just to think back and just pause about the journey that we've been on. Just in case God has said something to you, but you just haven't applied it. Because if you don't apply it, it's not going to change anything, and you won't change and it won't help. So it's very important that when it comes to learning of the scriptures, it's got to go through application and it's got to produce life change. If all you do is read to get knowledge, it will make you prideful, it will make you arrogant, and all you want to do is fight and win religious arguments. And nobody gets blessed out of that. In fact, Jesus said, don't do that. That is really destructive. So we want to make sure that our learning is turning into application. So if you happen to be here for the first time, you're going to hear about like 3 months in like 25 minutes, which is a bit of a stretch. But maybe God will still speak to you about something. You can always go back and watch these things. So anyway, we kicked it off with At the Movies. And the first one was kicked off was the Adam Project with Meg. She shared on that. And just the nutshell of that, this was about facing your past. Stop letting your past control you. You can't change your past, but you can face it and you can rid it of its power over you. Have you done anything with that? Do you need to do anything with that? Next one was one of my favorite speakers. Oh, sorry, no, it's the next one after that. Lord of the Rings. I tackled like 12 hours worth of stuff and flicked it down to like 35 minutes. This was about understanding like the smallest a person can make a huge difference in life. If you have space in your life for God to make a difference through you. And it was all about a little hobbit that lived a very simple life. And he had a very good group of friends around him and he was able to accomplish a great mission. So that was really all about simplifying. Are you simplifying your life to make space for God to show up? Next one is my favorite speaker, music and lyrics. This one got us in a little bit of trouble. Got us in a little bit of trouble here, I can tell you. We tackled a rom-com and got out there. But this was kind of semi-tied to what Megan was sharing. And we don't plan this when we're sharing. We just say, you just do whatever God puts on your heart. And this was about, you can get trapped and loop in your past and it can keep destroying your future. You can keep sabotaging it unless you have someone around you with enough love that'll do something that brings a confrontation of truth that helps you get unstuck. So that was great. It was great. And I don't know if you realize it, but we actually have something in our foyer that you see every week, which is a confrontation of truth to help you get unstuck. There's a sign out there and it says this: whoever finds God finds life. That doesn't matter where you are in your stage of life. When you come in, doesn't matter what's going on in your marriage, doesn't matter what's going on in your business, doesn't matter how you're feeling, how depressed you're feeling. When you see that sign, there's a confrontation that happens within. So you're saying that if I want to experience life, I got to figure out the God thing. So if I'm not experiencing life, what am I doing? Well, you're existing. You're existing, but there is life beyond that. So that was just so cool. And then the final one was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And this was all about, this Pastor Len shared this one, it was all about one person making a difference. He dedicated his whole life to kids ministry, to kids shows for 30 years because his whole identity and his whole purpose was tied to something way bigger than himself. And a lot of people, I've done some research on him, still think back about their whole childhood growing up and remembering this guy that did this thing. I didn't even know about him until recent times. But it was amazing, tying something to bigger than yourself. And I still think that we'll develop a kids show and a kids TV show and a club called Tutti Frutti. which is about the fruits of the Spirit and values. And you could input that and spend the next 30 years and grow up generations that actually understand how much God loves them and understand what kind of values will lead to a great life. So one thing I did miss in this series, and that was I missed the fact that I know we were sort of like pushing the boundaries. Normally we stick to very easy movies, and so we pushed the boundaries on some of these ones, and I kind of missed that a bit. I should have got it. So now I know that we're going this way. We're going to have a little disclaimer on all movies in the future. And it will say this. Somewhere you will see it around that says this for you. All movies contain lessons, both positive and negative, that we can learn from in regard to faith and life. Even though we're teaching out of this movie, that does not mean we endorse all the themes contained within it. And as parents, you'll need to watch the film and determine for yourself when the content is appropriate for your child to engage with. And I'm sorry I missed that. I should have got it earlier. I could have saved Pauline some grief. But it was fun. It was fun to do this. And we were learning because we're learning as well as we're going along. So out of that, basically at the movies, it was, here's the three key things that kept coming up. Have you dealt with your past in order to step into the future? A future of freedom. Have you dealt with it? Is there still things from your past that is just derailing and sabotaging you? If not, why are you not dealing with it? I know it looks big and I know it looks scary, but I tell you, once you deal with it, everything changes. Everything changes. You take away its power from over you. And the other thing is, how are you working on simplifying your life? Are you making your life more simple so there is space? Because the one thing I know about God is that he turns up in all of the most inconvenient of times. It's like in the middle of something and then someone just turns up and wants to talk. What? Why now? Because God is changing us. He is preparing us and he's helping us see what's really important. Sometimes I get very busy in here doing lots of stuff around the junction, and then someone wants to talk and I'm going, oh, people. And then God says, what do you think I'm asking you to do? It's about the people. But you've got to have space. So people come to me now and go, oh, you're so busy, you've got no time. I have always got time. And we sit, we change in the culture. But are you making some space like that? Have you realized that our life is not just about us? God could do something with you, but it might be a 30-year project. Jeff Davis would understand that they're trying to turn around education system at Hillcrest. You know, that doesn't turn around overnight. It takes a long period of time, but it's that long burn. That's the one that makes all the difference in the future. So that was at the movies. But have you done something with it? And that was a real preparation for us to go to the next word, which is the word of the year, which is risk. Helping us understand we need to risk. But not risk to get more in this world. Let's face it, you've got enough in this world and you're unhappy with it anyway. Why do you need more? It's risking everything in this world for Christ to accomplish something in and through us. And we looked at an example of a bridge that collapsed because they shifted the pylons, and I tied some history in there, which I won't go into now. So you can go back and watch that if you want to. But essentially what happened is that under Constantine, the church went from a mobile mission minority spreading everywhere to suddenly a celebrated majority. And it went from, let's go make disciples, to no, come look at our extravagant, awesome buildings with our great orators, our professional clergy. And the church in the 21st century has not recovered from that in a lot of places. So that's part of us learning to risk, because the risk is real. I don't know if you remember, I don't know. Do you guys have the video of that bridge collapse at all? Is that in there? I can't remember if I gave it to you or not. You don't? No. There was the Baltimore Bridge recently because one of the pylons got hit out and the whole thing just went down. So when there's a risk to shifting and changing, but you've got to help, God's got to help us understand this, because if you take one pylon out, it makes a mess. So we're about this thing. But this is all about, you've got to deal with your past. You got to deal with your past, simplify your life, and understand it's not about you, so that we can risk and go forward. And this is all tied to Jesus' statement for us, which is that he's got all authority in heaven and earth has been given to him. Therefore, go and make disciples. This is what we're all about. This is what the risk is all about. So out of that, we did a series on miracles, understanding how do you go with miracles and what do you do when you're waiting and how do you wait well. Some people don't wait well. If you learn to wait well in the miracle, it's much better. But that was a really good one because it started to focus us up towards thinking about the supernatural, and Jesus can turn water into wine. And I know some of you are incredibly happy about that one. Water to wine, and then, but he can also calm storms. He can stand up and just speak to a storm and the whole thing dies down. Whoa, I wish I had that gift. That would be just so awesome. I'd rent myself out to weddings every weekend. There's plenty of money in that. But that perfectly positioned us for Easter. And Easter is where we celebrate the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. That is the event on the Christian calendar. That is what we're about. Some people feel like, my whole faith and my life is tied to the fact of an inerrant book or a non-contradicting book. It's not. Some people think, my faith comes undone because of the fact of, this world's got suffering in it. Well, a world with suffering doesn't disprove God. It just disproves a God that doesn't allow suffering. And whose God's that? Jesus virtually promised it to us. He said, you're going to suffer in this world. That's not the foundation of our faith. And so you don't have to get caught up in quantum physics and, unverifiable miracles and natural selection. It's all very nice and we can have a fun debate over that. But at the end of the day, that is not the foundation of our faith. The foundation of our faith is the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus Christ. Not just a theological thing, but a historical thing. And no one ever challenges because they can't. But they'll challenge everything else in that other place. So that was about Easter. It was setting us up there to say, okay, right, let's get this right. And then, of course, we did the series, Heaven, Who Goes There? Talked about good people going to heaven, and everyone thinks that good people go to heaven. And of course, you're a good person. But then who decides what good is? Well, you decide what's good in, so therefore you're a good person, so you're going to heaven. Your friend's good because they're going to heaven. So basically, the whole good people go to heaven, if you scratch under the surface, comes undone real quick. And it eventually gets to the point where means everybody goes to heaven. But that's a problem because then people that have had incredible injustices done to them get no justice. And that's a theme I didn't touch on when we talked about that. That's not fair. And God is a just God. And Jesus said everybody will give an account for what they say and what they do. So there is a reckoning that takes place after that. So that was kind of our journey, and it was all about learning to trust, and it was all about learning to risk, learning to deal with your past. Stop letting it control you. Simplify your life. Do you really need everything that's going on? Can you create some space where God could break in and do something with you? And maybe it's a big thing that'll take 30 years. That's okay. If you don't live, he'll put someone else on the back end. He's always got a backup plan. But that's what it's all about. Being willing to risk, because Jesus risked everything for us. Why wouldn't we risk? Why wouldn't we risk to help God reach the people that he loves?